I work with an organization called Center for Sustainable Agriculture. It is based out of Hyderabad. We work in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Maharashtra, and also several other states. Basically, our groundwork is in 3 states, but we also work with farmers in nearly 12 states in the country. Our core work involves training farmers in shifting towards organic farming. So that's the core work which we do. And in addition, organizing them into farmer cooperatives and then linking them to markets and also on the public policy issues. So, the 3 dimensions of the work which we do. And we work with nearly 250 FPOs. So, we are promoting organization for about 60 FPOs, and we are also a resource organization for more than 150. And we also do trainings and many other things. And we are also a PGS regional council. We are also a PGS regional council and under PGS India. So, with that experience is what I wanted to say. We are 20 years old, so we are working from almost 2004 onwards in all these spaces. So, few things I think bringing back the discussion onto PGS, particularly on the PGS, and then what is happening in the country today and what we all can do looking forward. I think the context in which we all started PGS Council has changed significantly today. I think that's I think we need to look at the changed context. How do we work today? There is a much larger take towards organic and natural farming by various names across the country. There could be a lot of debates about by what name we need to call it or what practices should be promoted. But I think shifting towards more sustainable agriculture, I think there is a good buying at the government level as well as in the markets as well as at the farmers level as well. There is a transition which is happening. So, the objectives with which we started at the time to link to the markets, the local markets as the PGS OC, also are now taken over by the government after starting PGS India. So, we need to look at how we also reimagine our role in the changed context. I think that is a very important thing we need to look at this point of time in the changed context, what kind of role we play. Like Bablu was rightly mentioning, the PGS OC when it started in the very initial, it was all about local markets. So, as long as we are selling in the local markets, I think we can continue with the same way we are doing. But the moment we are getting into distant markets, be it in the urban markets, be it in the other cities, other states, when we are largely moving into the areas where directly we are not known, we need systems in place. I think that's what PGS India tried to do. So, and then now across the country, there are several regional councils which are already established and then doing in whatever way PGS regional council are able to do. Similarly, the consumer awareness has increased for organic food. So, the market is certainly growing like in every field. So, in the 2 examples which Shambhu mentioned or Kshitiz was mentioning, see what normally happens in society is small people struggle we struggle to establish models, and who are established in the marketplace, they take over once you create opportunity. That's what will happen in every field. And it happens in NGO sector. So, most of the work done by grassroots organizations is taken over by networks and larger NGOs. Same thing is happening with FPO, same thing is happening with startups. So, the startups struggle to establish themselves. Once they establish themselves, Tatas will buy or Ambanis will buy. That's what is happening. And same thing happened, either government will take over or the market will take over. In both the cases, there are issues actually. How do we deal with that is what we need to figure out now. I think that's say today, if you look at the natural farming, the way the natural farming is going in the country, it is also hijacked, taken over by few people, and the way they want to define it, what they define. And then all rest of the learnings, initiatives are all pushed aside. So, in that context, there is also a need in terms of bringing back debate into a diverse production systems, local markets, how do we deal with that? So, instead of having a one size fits all kind of solution, whether it is about production technology or it is about quality assurance systems or a government program in terms of supporting farmers, think we should have a diverse models across the country to come up with. So towards that, I think we should still continue to work as a lobby group. So if you are looking at our role as that side, how do we work is something we need to figure out. Third is collectives. Yes, Shambhu rightly mentioned FPOs now, like natural farming, now FPOs also are becoming widespread. So there are issues in collectives, but also there is also a kind of buying. So I think positively engaging and then bringing learnings from ground will change. So like organic farming, say for example, if you look back 10 years back, 15 years back when we were talking about NPM, the kind of resistance which was there, today it is not there. And the kind of change which has come in. So same thing I think also happens with FPOs. If we can also discuss about the learnings which are coming from the ground and then taking it forward. That's what I feel. So certainly collectives will be a very good platform which we can use for strengthening the local markets and also using quality assurance systems. So you don't need to look at say 10 years back when we talked about organic certification through PGS or other things, it was about individuals or very small groups kind of thing. Now collectives are, the larger collectives are there, and then also there are initiatives where large number of farmers are shifting. So we can have a different model of the quality assurance system for such institutions as well. So collectives also offer a new way of dealing with these things. That's what I feel. And similarly, direct market initiatives have increased significantly. If you look at say 10 years back, 20 years back compared to that, today direct market initiatives also has increased significantly. Data now shows that nearly 1800 crores business is direct markets, farmers directly selling in the market, while organized retail organic market is 2000 crores, farmers directly selling is 1800 crores. So we are almost reaching there and then competing with the retail market as well. So coming together and actually creating a forum of stakeholders may certainly help. Small stores, small processors, small producers coming together, farmers collectives coming together, and then moving forward. I think that kind of visualization is what we need to do in terms of taking forward. So in terms of, that's what I feel when we talk about the PGS OC should be doing. And also a few wild thoughts, basically having working in this space for a long time, and then suddenly policy changes, and then we are all always trying to do firefighting kind of thing to meet the changed policy all the time. So can we also look at how as civil society organizations we can all work together? So few things. So some of us are into PGS India. So there are a number of councils which also has at least like thinking. So can we all come together and form a kind of council? So there is a government approval for PGS Regional Council and all, but we can also add on few more guidelines, few more parameters into this, and then make it into a better working system. So we can together we can also verify each other and then also form into a kind of system where the guarantee between councils also can come in, right? Because say ultimately it's about the credibility. How do we establish credibility? How do we work together as collective is something which is important. So if farmers groups are formed, councils also can form into a group and then we can create it rather than only depending on the government. I think that's one thing which we can look at. Second thing, like across the world, if you look at the quality management systems, beyond organic, many countries tried out, say biodynamic labeling system, regenerative labeling system, likewise rainforest alliances. So there are a number of new initiatives also have come up. So we can also think about those things. So like Government of India itself has come up with natural farming as another labeling system. So like that we can also think about an additionality which we can bring in. into the, rather than doing the same thing, we can also think about an additionality in the system so that we can take it forward. And also one more important thing I felt when we were talking to many organizations, nationally, internationally, is can we also network across the world? Say, why exports should be only through NPOP certification? And now that NPOP is also not recognized by the international organizations, and then now you have to have the international certification for 3 years. So NPOP actually has lost its relevance. So can we also network with PGS organizations in other countries and then look at equivalence and then establish? So if we can also form into an alliance, the PGS councils can form an alliance and then form an alliance across the globe. And then at least with those countries where there is an acceptance, we can also build an equivalent system so that markets also can be captured, because most of the food products which goes from here are finally consumed by Indians there also. So if you're looking at US market, if you're looking at UK market, or if you're looking at any market, it's basically Indians who are going to consume in those markets also. So I think we can look at that kind of networking across the globe also, which can help. So these are few of my thoughts I wanted to put before the council. Otherwise, we end up actually struggling only being reactive to what is happening. So I think from there, if we can move into being proactively doing something, so that whatever changes may happen, let them happen. But wherever there are spaces, we can capture those spaces. Where we don't have the spaces, anyway, they will continue with the way they can, is what I feel. Because having seen last several years, I think there is a lot of acceptance in terms of shift, the transition. But the moment government gets into it, it fudges the data, it creates its own, it does it by its own convenience. I can say, you can look at natural farming, you can look at data coming from various projects across the country. Data is fudged clearly. Similarly, the benefits of organizing farmers as FPOs. Certainly there are examples, few examples, but we are unable to replicate because the way the programs are designed. Because most of the programs are designed by consultants who never have any ground experience. Just to elaborate on what Shambhu has said. So NABARD initially had that project, PODF project, where 9 lakhs is given to organize an FPO. That 9 lakhs is spread over for 3 years. So in 3 years, you'll get 9 lakh rupees to organize FPO. That was the initial one, and they realized, and then most of the FPOs are formed by organizations which were into watershed management. So that's how that whole thing happened. And later on, they realized that's not happening. So in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, they brought in resource organizations. So we were one of the resource organizations working with about 150 FPOs in Andhra, Telangana. And the budget given for creating market access was 834 rupees. 834 rupees for 3 years. For 3 years. And you can imagine what can be done in that. So most of the time, because the target is set high, no, per FPO. Per FPO. And in one of the forum, when I told this, NABARD CGM called me and asked me for an apology. When I said this, how can we create a market with 834 rupees? When I said this, they called me to apologize for saying this in public forum. So I think that's the way governments work. See, rather than taking, I would say, rather than taking the feedback and then improvising on that, the resistance is much higher. Many things I would say PKVY project, for example. After a long time, I think PKVY is one of the good project which was designed saying equitably we also need to support farmers with, since the chemical farmers will get support, PKVY farmers also should get some support so that they can make a transition. But when the natural farming thing happened in Andhra Pradesh, they said there is no need of supporting farmers, and then they removed the whole support. and they removed the whole support that farmers have to transit on their own. And so now that probably will become the national norm now. See, equitable support is something which is very, very critical and important when we are making these transitions, right? So like that, many times what is happening is that when the policy asks are happening, and then when the policy decisions are happening, they're not actually many times not learning from the ground. Today I was looking at the natural farming, the new guidelines which are coming up, and talking about in natural farming that you should not buy anything from outside. So I think without buying anything from outside, cultivating and then doing agriculture is certainly going to be an issue. And then if that is going to be a criteria. So like that, I would say many times when such things are happening, from a group which is working with farmers, collectives, markets, and then within this quality assurance kind of thing, can we all look at a long-term perspective in terms of from where we started today, situation has changed significantly. So in moving forward, how we can work together and learn from each other so that we can move forward as a collective. I think that's what we should look at. There are a number of good things happening in the country. At the same time, there are several new constraints also came up. So we need to figure out how do we solve them. And we cannot solve them with the old mind or old learnings we had, because it's a new age problems. And also the new challenges which we are getting also are very different. I won't say, so when many times we talk about traditional farming practices are very good. See, every technology or every institution or any practice or a policy is a context oriented. It is dependent on the context. So what could have worked, say, 1,000 years back, or what could have worked 100 years back, 500 years back, trying to bring it back. You can learn from that, but how do we bring in new learnings and then combine with the old experiences and then create new knowledge is something which is very, very important. Otherwise, today we are in a world where somebody want to bring back 60 years back old science, and some other group want to bring back 1,000 years old knowledge. So the struggle is about going back, not about going forward. So what are the new challenges for the next 50 years with the kind of climate change happening? What is the new challenges? How do we actually deal with that? So for that, what kind of institutional systems are required? With the kind of change happening in the market, what kind of markets are required? What kind of production practices are required is something which is very, very important. Otherwise, we continue to say farming is a noble enterprise, farmers should not buy anything from outside, farmers should struggle on their own, and then we only continue to talk about it, but nothing happens. And then in a situation, say in Andhra Pradesh, we were actually looking at the incomes of the people. 21% of the income comes from crop cultivation, 21%. And this 21% is 1 lakh rupees of annual income. And you can imagine if that's what is their income and how much they can put in. So given all the socio-economic changes happening, environmental changes happening, market changes happening, policy changes happening, can we redefine ourselves? I think that's what I would say. So both in terms of practices, because the quality assurance depends on what we want to do, where we want to capture. One mistake we did about PGS, I would say, honestly, is about trying to equate PGS with the ICS system. Rather than that, define PGS for local markets. The international markets, quality assurance certification systems can be different, but there could be easy way of transiting between these two. If we could create that kind of system, probably it works better, is what I would say. Say if I want to sell in, say if Timbuktu want to sell in Anantapur, why should somebody from Hyderabad or Delhi should come and certify them? But if Timbuktu want to sell in Delhi, probably somebody has to do. So I think that's a kind of system if we can bring in, so that we can move from one system to another easily. If those things can come in easily, it will be better. And today we are creating impermeable layers between all these systems. Say you cannot move from PGS to NPOP. We cannot move from NPOP to NOP. Each one requires 3 years. So by the time I get these 3, I register for one certification system and complete 3 years, policy is changed. So again, I need to restart. So rather than that, can we do this? Another important thing, since Dr. A.K. Yadav is here, sir, can we also recognize independent PGS systems also as part of the larger PGS council, so that it will we can also come up with more and more systems, because finally it is their responsibility to sell. Right? Finally, whoever follows, say if Keystone is saying, I followed a particular system, this is the quality I am assuring, and it finally becomes Keystone's responsibility to sell. Right? So I think we should also have such kind of thing. When self-certification is becoming a norm in the mainstream industry, the entire seed certification is now moving into self-certification. So we should also look at those kind of initiatives, so that this also can be recognized, so that many more initiatives may come up. So PGS OC is one of the initiatives. There could be many more initiatives. So these are broadly my thoughts, and we also follow PGS system, but what we are trying to do is, we use PGS data for everything we are doing. So our FPO, the entire production planning, FPO management is all done using the PGS. So PGS for us is the basic data of the farmers. So I have so many farmers, and then they have so much of land, and then in that land, this is the crops which they are growing, and this is the economic benefit they had, this is the ecological benefit of doing this one. So all that data is managed through this. So for me, PGS is a data management system. So it's nothing about, it's not only about quality assurance, it's about the data management of our farmers. So we work with nearly about 60,000 farmers today who are organized into FPOs, and we manage all the data over years, and then we are trying to from production planning, input purchase to what has happened in the farm kind of thing. Now we are also trying to use the same data for calculating the ecological footprints, and then also the ecological services which farmers may probably need for a transition kind of thing. For that also we are trying to use, and then trying to quantify the carbon sequestration which is happening in the farm and all, using the same data. So that instead of having 2-3 different sets of data, if we can have one data management system, it becomes easier. I think that's another thing I wanted to say. Yeah. So thank you for giving me this opportunity for being here.